Kipp, what's up, man? How are you?
Good.
Good. We were just talking about it last. Ask Me Anything. We went for an hour and 45 minutes. I tried it. I think we kind of just came to the conclusion that we're trying to keep these things to about an hour, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how we lost track of time that much. I guess just these conversations are so riveting that time just flies.
Yeah. All those suckers that listen to the last AMAs are like, oh, I'm never listening to one of those again. I just blew an hour and a half.
I don't know though. I listen to it again, and people make fun of me. They're like, "You listen to your own podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I do," because I want to know, right? I want to know where I need to improve and where I need to get better, and what questions I may have missed or opportunities that I overlooked. And so, yeah, I'm listening to it, and I pull it up, and it's an hour and like 45 minutes. I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. What's funny about listening to previous podcasts is because my wife gives me crap about the same thing. She'll be like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, it's good for me to critique kind of how I'm speaking, but sometimes I lose myself in listening and I start like laughing.
Oh, I do that too. I'm like, I'm funny.
I like laugh at my own jokes. I'm like, I'm so lame.
Yeah.
I even know what I'm going to say and I still think
it's still funny. You're like, I am good. I'm good at this podcasting thing. All right, man. Should we just jump right into it? Hey, for those of you guys who don't know, we do this every week. This is our Ask Me Anything. And one thing I would also suggest to you as well is that if you're not following us or connected or subscribed or whatever the term is on YouTube, that you get that done, because you'll get to see me and Kipp interact. We're going to do a lot more video in 2019. And I think we've done the last 3 or 4 Ask Me Anything podcast episodes on YouTube. And we've got a lot of good feedback from it. Guys like the interaction and the format. So if you're interested in video, just head to youtube.com/Order of Man and you'll find this exact episode in video format.
And you can see all the Order of Man swag that you can order from the store.
That's right. I got my hat on. You're not representing today. You had your Iron Council jacket on, but outside of that, I'm a little disappointed.
I know. Client meetings. I'm officially back to work.
What? I told you what would happen if you wore your Order of Man swag. You'd sell more and make more money and all the other things.
Or like, what's that for? Oh, this is podcast. You do podcast. And then it's like this whole long drawn out question to explain.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's jump into this thing today. I was having a debate. In fact, I'm going to bring this up real quick. I was having a debate with a friend of mine about the length of shows and whether or not we owe it to our audience to get right into it. And he said that it's the responsibility of the creator of a podcast, in this case, to get to the meat of the information as quickly as possible. And I would agree with that for the person that's interested in that. But I would disagree with that for the person who may appreciate a little banter or more conversational than just jumping right into the meat of the thing. So I'm actually really curious what you guys who are listening would say. Do you like the longer format where Kipp and I go back and forth, or do you just want us to get right into questions as quickly as possible? I imagine it's mixed, which is why we have the Friday Field Notes, because that's a little bit shorter and it just gets right into it. We've got this where we have this conversation in the interviews, and I don't even say interviews anymore, but conversations. I'm just really curious on what format you like and why. So drop me a line on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or an email, whatever. I'd be really curious what you guys have to say, because we want to make sure that we're serving you best.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear what people say. I mean, because so many questions, right? We could go, look at the first question. I'm interested in hunting. Go hunting. Next question.
Do more hunting.
Yeah. What's some vitamins and supplements you recommend? All of them. Do your research. Next question.
Which sometimes there's validity to that too, though. Sometimes like the quick answer is the right answer.
Yeah. We'll just be like complete assholes.
Yeah.
How do you rebuild trust? Be honest. Next question.
But that's true though. I mean, you could get look, I think sometimes we just have a tendency of rattling on and on and on and on. But I think at the end of the day, what it does is it waters down and it excuses our behavior, or it just confirms what we already knew we should be doing in the first place. I see that a lot in the Order of Man Facebook group. Guys will ask questions, but they'll ramble on and they'll actually answer their own questions in the post itself.
Yeah. I'm
like, dude, you already answered the question. Just throw some balls and follow through on what you should be doing. And look, knowing what you should do, knowing the path and the course that you should take, it doesn't make it easier. It really doesn't. Yeah. It just means you know what you need to do.
Well, and you know those guys are doing that when they have this whole backstory. Oh, let me tell you this story. Because guess what, Ryan? This story will justify a different answer than what I think.
Right.
So let me give you this story. And you're like, hey, guess what? That story doesn't matter.
I don't care.
It's still the same.
If somebody in the group says something to the effect of, hey guys, sorry for the long post, and that's the first sentence, I'm like, dude, I'm out. Like, it doesn't need to be long. The longer it is, the more, to your point, you're excusing away your behavior. Just tell us what the deal is, and we'll see if we can point you in the right direction.
Totally.
But that is one of the things that I appreciate about the Iron Council a little bit more is, for lack of a better term, we've conditioned these guys not to excuse away their behavior. And so they're not giving us the story because we frankly flat out say, dude, I don't care about your story. Like, what you're doing right now is off. You know it's off. Correct the behavior.
Yeah. And we have to remind guys every so often. You're like, all right, share, no story. Straight to the point, right? Because those stories don't matter.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. I mean, they do, right? Like, to the degree that you're living it, but they don't matter a lot when it comes to trying to excuse away your behavior.
Yeah.
Totally. And everybody will say, no, it matters because my situation's different. No, it isn't. We all deal with it. We all want the same things for the most part.
Yeah.
We all deal with the same things for the most part. So
yeah. Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the responses are principle based. And when the answer to an issue is principle based, guess what? It doesn't matter what the story is. The principle is applicable regardless of the backstory, regardless of anything else. So
right. So I guess the moral of the story is don't just do what you know you need to do, answer your own problems, solve your own problems, and execute. Take action on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe get confirmation. You know,
I don't even think, I mean, maybe I think there's some circumstances where you might need that, you know, if you're dealing with maybe a technical issue. But at the end of the day, like, I think the decision that we're making, if you're doing what you know is right, I think just having the experience of going through the process will confirm what it is you should be doing.
Yeah.
I don't think that I need a whole lot of confirmation from you or anybody else on what workouts I should be doing. Like, you're not even working out. So just go into the gym and move. And once you get the fundamentals right, then you can worry about these little intricacies that you're hung up on right now. Yeah. People say that all the time in the money world too. There's like, Ryan, I sold my practice, so I'm no longer a financial advisor, but they would say, you know, I just want, you know, the best rate of return. Like, what's the best rate of return you can get me? And I'd always ask, well, tell me what your savings and investment strategy is now. And they're like, oh, I'm not saving anything now. It's like, well, why don't, like, 100% on zero is zero. So why don't you learn to, like, save some money first?
Yeah. And then we can worry about.
Right.
Or pay off that credit card that has a huge interest rate. You're like,
that's a guaranteed rate of return.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, whatever. Cool. Let's get into the questions, man. What was the first one about hunting?
Yeah, it is actually about hunting. I use those as examples. So Ryan Pardini, I've been very interested in learning how to hunt. I've never hunted in my life and I want to learn. What do you suggest to do to get into hunting? I want to go, but I want to make sure I do everything properly. I do not want to be a wasteful hunter.
You are. It's going to happen. It's just like anything. When you very first start, you're going to be slow. You're going to be inefficient. You're not going to have things dialed in just right. And I think that we owe, especially when it comes to hunting, that we owe the animal our training and our reverence, I think, is probably the right word when it comes to you're actually out there stalking an animal and you're going to put an arrow or a bullet through that animal and take its life and then claim it and eat it. I think there's a lot of reverence that should be shown towards the wildlife and that animal that you're trying to harvest. So yes, I do appreciate that you're trying to gain some knowledge and experience, but just understand that it's not going to go perfectly and it's not going to all work out the way that you thought it would. My first hunt actually went really, really well, which was kind of a trap because my next several hunts did not go so well. So I was kind of slapped in the face with reality. But I think there's plenty of information online. There's guys who are hunters. There's TV shows about hunting that you could definitely get involved with. There's people in your area. There might even be organizations or gun clubs or hunting clubs in your area that you can get involved with, where you can start to become friends with these individuals. And I've gone out on hunts with friends where I didn't even have a tag. So I had a friend, this was probably 4 or 5 months ago. He called me up and I asked him what he was up to. And he said, yeah, I'm going on a hunt in whenever he was going. And it's down in your neck of the woods. I said, do you mind if I come along? I'm like, I don't have a tag. I just want to come along. I'll help spot for you or whatever I can do. He's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And so I just went out with him and 2 or 3 of his other buddies. And I didn't even have my firearm or anything with me or my bow, and just went out and spotted for him. And it was a good time. And I learned a little bit. So find people who are doing it. Find people online, go through courses, see if there's a local gun club or hunting club in your area. I would even go to the shooting range because a lot of these guys who are shooting are also going to be hunters. That makes sense. So there's a lot of little resources, but you're going to have to exercise some assertiveness in it and really put yourself in an environment where these hunters are. Maybe there's conferences that you can go to, but there's things out there. There really are. There's plenty out there. If you really want to do it, you'll find a way to make it happen.
Okay. What I'm hearing though is don't think you're going to get it perfect, and
you're definitely not.
Just
you're
need
definitely
to get out
not.
there and do it.
You want to, you want everything to go right because, again, the last thing you want to do is wound an animal. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to go out. I'd rather not take a shot than take a shot and wound an animal and never be able to recover it. So there's a seriousness about what it is that we're doing when we're out in the field hunting for an animal, and it deserves your respect, and it deserves your training so that you can do it successfully. But it's hunting. It's not grocery shopping, right? So things are going to go wrong and it's going to be a challenge.
Cool. All right. Next question. Ian Mason, what are some essential vitamins or supplements that you have found?
I've never really been big into the supplemental thing, but I actually work a lot with Origin. I know you guys have probably heard me talk about Origin on the podcast. But the way they formulate their supplements, and it's partnered up with Jocko Willink, but they do the Mulk, which is their protein. They have a new nootropic they just introduced, which was incredible. I felt an immediate reaction to that in a positive way. They've got their Super Krill, then their Joint Warfare, which was really good for me, especially as I was getting started in jujitsu because my joints were really hurting. There's a lot of pressure on your joints and your arms and your knees and your neck and everything else. So those are valuable. And I've implemented those in my regimen. But I don't get too carried away with the supplements. I figure that, and this comes back to our point that we made earlier about getting the fundamentals right. People are worried about supplements, and yet they get most of their food at Burger King. There's no supplement that's going to make up for that. So get your diet right, your nutrition right. Eat meats, eat vegetables, drink lots of water. And once you start pinning that stuff down, then you can add to that, right? Then you can enhance what you're already doing. But I think a lot of people think, if I just take a supplement, it'll make up for everything else I'm doing. No, it won't even make a dent.
Yeah. I have a trainer. He's a old Jim Jones guy. And it's funny because we talk about diet all the time. And he's like, most people, it's simple. We want to kind of over-engineer the process. He's like, just stop eating candy at first. Stop drinking soda.
Right.
Reduce your sugar input. Just do the fundamental things first, and you can have much better results. And like you said, it doesn't matter what supplements you're taking if you're still pounding a Snickers or whatever.
Right. I think that over-engineering, that's a really good term. I think we do that to excuse ourselves in a way. Yeah. Right. We complicate the process, and we think that our story or our situation is so unique that we have to do something special. And really, at the end of the day, what it causes you to do is to not take any action at all, because you might even be doing this subconsciously. Because if it's complex, then you have a reason for not doing it. But if it's simple, you have to look at the guy in the mirror and say, oh, this has been simple, and yet I'm still not doing it. So it's a lot harder to justify when it's simple. But when it's complicated, you're like, oh, well, it's complicated. It just takes time. And we excuse away our behaviors and patterns.
Well, and sometimes we make it so complicated that it becomes our boundary, our barrier. It ends up becoming an issue because we've made it so complex to actually accomplish anything. Definitely. So do you think the Joint Warfare has helped you with destroying little kids on dodgeball?
100%, man. Dude, you saw that video. I'm a killer, dude.
It was so funny. So Ryan posted this picture on Instagram at Ryan McClure, by the way. And it's pronounced McClure, right? Not Mitchler or, I'm just joking. We've had that.
We've known each other long enough.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna entertain your stupid jokes.
So he posted a picture yesterday, and he's like, he's playing dodgeball. I think it's your wife, or I don't know, someone is video.
Yeah, it's my wife.
Look at all these kids playing dodgeball, and all of a sudden she pans over to the left, and you see Ryan out there, and right then he like chucks his ball and like takes out this kid's legs.
It was so awesome. I mean, I hit both of his legs, and he just did like a face plant, and then I had 2 balls. And the kid behind it, he was good. The kid behind him was good. And so I threw it at the kid in front of him, dropped him, threw it at the kid behind him, and he tried to catch it, but he couldn't catch it. And I was like, yeah. Double kill. No, you know what is like, we were at the bounce house. This is valuable. I think this is an important thing here that we talk about this. We were at the bounce house yesterday for my second's, his birthday party. That's where he likes to go. I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. I like the bounce house because it's good exercise and everything anyways. So we get there, and there's literally 24 parents there. And all of them are in their little fancy high heels and their tight little jeans and their cute little bejazzled button-up shirts. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? You're at the bounce house. You know, like when I knew we were going, I got my gym shorts on and my dry wick shirt on because I knew I was going to go jump around with the kids, right? Yeah. And I see these parents, and they're all on their phones, and they're so preoccupied with what they're doing, and their kids are out there playing, having fun. And look, there's value in letting your kids interact with other kids, sure. But I actually wonder how much of this spills over, this lack of attention in their kids' lives spills over into other elements or aspects of the relationship. I think it's very indicative, or at least telling, of the relationship between kids and their parents. And I just thought, I think it's really, really important that we as parents get involved. And sometimes that means throwing dodgeballs at kids and having fun. And yeah, it's just something I like to do, man. It's a good time. And I have people say, oh, you're a bully or whatever. You know what? Maybe. But who else is going to do it?
But I still won.
But who else is going to do it?
Yeah.
Like, who else is going to put a kid in their place? It's like, I don't get that anymore. I had some kids over for their birthday party, and one of them was being a little turd. And I told him, I said, hey, don't act like that. You might be able to act like that at your house, but you don't act like that here. And he's like, he was so scared. I'm like, good. You should be. You should have some respect. Like, I see kids these days, and I'm like, like kids these days. But I see kids these days, and I'm like, where is your level of respect? Like, everybody's so afraid to tell kids, okay, this is how you behave. These are the parameters in which you can operate. And if you fall out of these parameters, there's consequences. Oh, heaven forbid we do that. So I deliver consequences in the form of red rubber dodgeballs to the face and legs.
Oh, so funny. So funny.
Good times. Good times.
And now you know why we ramble.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Nathan Federico. How to rebuild trust, a general guide.
Be honest. Isn't that what you said earlier?
Yeah.
That's it, man. Like, it's going to take some time. You did something that I assume that somebody's now questioning your level of trust and credibility. So, and maybe rightfully so, frankly. I don't know what the situation was, but you rebuild trust by upholding your word. It's very simple. It takes time. I wish it could be, I wish you could just say, hey, you can trust me, but you proved otherwise that you can't be trusted. So how do you build it? Well, you build it. So when you say you're going to do something as simple as taking the trash out or checking out of work at a certain time, or, picking up something at the grocery store for your wife or whatever, even these little seemingly insignificant things, the more that you do that over and over and over and over again, the more that you rebuild that trust. It's the analogy I've heard before, not necessarily with trust, but other avenues. And I think it applies here is think of your trust as a bank account. And when you go into the bank and you ask the teller, how much money can I pull out of the account? They're going to say, well, let me pull it up and see how much is in here. And let's say there's $20,000 in there. Well, you can pull up to $20,000 out. What happens when you damage trust is you're making a withdrawal from that trust bank, right? And your withdrawal may not have covered your deposits. And so you break that trust and you go bankrupt. So how do you rebuild it? You start making deposits into that trust account again. And how do you do that? Keeping your word, honoring your commitments, following through on the things that you say you're going to follow through on, and rebuild what you have spent, quite frankly. Anything you'd add?
No, just consistency is key. The
Yeah.
minute you slip up, it's up. Ryan, he didn't change. Same old, same old.
Yep.
So you got to be on your A game. You can't slip up. And you already alluded to it. You have to, in your mind, you need to be extreme about it. The slightest little, I don't know, you got to be honest about everything. And there's no gray space. You got to be 100% trustworthy.
Yeah. I would say also be careful of pandering too, because you might feel like you're in the position where you need to make up for something. And so you'll do things and compromise maybe your own sanity or well-being, just to like overcompensate. And I think that's a trap that you could potentially fall into. Like, what's done is done. Okay. It's done.
Yeah.
So you, even though somebody else might not be able to, you have to wipe your slate clean. You have to forgive yourself and say, okay, I messed up. I made amends to the best of my ability. I apologized, or I rectified the situation to the best that I could. Now I'm rebuilding from ground level. Now somebody else might have a different view, but that's the point that you need to take. So don't dwell on that stuff, and don't allow people to hold it over you either. And that's what they'll do a lot of times. Well, remember when you did this? Yes, I did that. And here's how I'm correcting the behavior moving forward. So don't allow yourself to be railroaded either, because, or blackmailed, or what do they call, blackballed or something, because you've done this in the past, right? You have to live with the consequence for sure, but now you correct your behavior moving forward.
Yeah. That's interesting. At the root of what you just said, Ryan, I think it's, why are you now going to be honest? Earning back trust should be the result of the new version of you, and it shouldn't be the focus.
That's interesting.
Right? If your focus is, I got to earn back trust, then where are you putting happiness and success in? Them? That other person changing, you're now building your identity around what someone else thinks of you. That's dangerous too, right? So
that's interesting. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, maybe focus on transforming yourself and being that man that you should be, and a bystander or a byproduct of that will be establishing or reestablishing trust with someone.
Right. I think the same thing when it comes to fitness and other aspects of our lives. People, I got to be strong. No, you have to work out.
Yeah.
The strong part will just happen. I got to lose weight. No, you have to eat right, and you have to run and exercise and move your body, and the weight thing will take care of itself. We focus so heavily on the end result, to your point, and we forget about the tactics that we should be employing to achieve those ultimate results. Yeah. I like that. Cool. Yeah. What else?
All right. This is a little lengthy and a good question, actually. So, although I only read a portion of it just as you were speaking. So Alec McGee, I have a parenting question. This may be long and a bit controversial, but I need advice. So my girlfriend and I have a kid. While I know kids don't know everything, this situation is very complicated. Our kid, from the looks of it, is a transgender, and I don't know how to go about this. But I know this is probably genetic and nothing to do with how we raised our kid, due to the fact that our kid has an uncle that turned, aunt on their mom's side. Mom wants to let the kid wear and play what they want because she doesn't want our kid to suffer like her siblings did. I just don't know what the answer is or how to go about this in order to be the best dad possible. I am skeptical because of our kid is 8. I don't want to be one of those parents on television who is so misunderstood, made out to be indoctrinating their kids into being a transgender. That's not the case. We're both conservative Christians who just aren't sure what would be the best way to go about this, because we have tried to discourage it for years until recently, when we overheard our child praying to be with Jesus if they can't wake up as another gender. Please do not judge me. I am asking for advice.
Yeah, man, I don't judge on that. That's a difficult situation, and I'm certainly not the expert. I don't even know, really. I don't know. I haven't read these questions ahead of time, so I haven't really thought about this, but maybe you have. Maybe you can interject and I can think about it. But I would just say, raise your child in love and give them discipline and structure and guidance, and teach them right from wrong and teach them why it's important to, I believe there's probably some biological issues in some situations. Certainly not all. I don't believe that every situation is like that. I think sometimes, being transgender or being gay is something that may be looked at as cool, right? And so
attention.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, but again, I don't believe that in every circumstance, and I don't know this gentleman's circumstance. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe there's other people that you can talk with who have been through this. Maybe there's some medical, help that you can get, some coaching or consulting or counseling. I just don't know. I wish I had a stance. I wish I could say, just treat him like a boy or treat him or I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Me either. This is super tough. The only thing that comes to mind, and I try to bestow this on my kids on a regular basis, especially my older boys. And the point that I try to make to them that I think it is applicable to this is that you are defined by your choices and your actions, always. And society's going to have a tendency to put labels on you. Maybe this is a label or whatever, but in the end, what defines you as a man is what you choose to do. That's ultimately what defines you.
Right.
If I was defined in regards to what my thoughts were, trust me, people would see me much different. Right. But to be frank, I'm not perfect. I have probably horrible thoughts on a regular basis. And you know what I mean? I'm trying to struggle and become a better person all the time. If I was defined by that, then I wouldn't be who I am. And so I'd like to think that I'm defined by my actions and around what I choose to do and what I try to do, and not be defined by labels or my thought process or anything else. And so I would just try to reiterate that they decide how they're going to be defined, not anyone else. We decide that.
But I also think
that's up to us.
I mean, I agree, but I also believe that it's healthy to give our children parameters in which to operate. Right. And so, the fact is this a boy? I didn't really catch. Is this a biological boy? Let's just assume that's what it is, just unless it says otherwise.
I don't think he says.
The fact is that he is a boy, right? He's a boy if that's what he's born. And there's parameters in which you need to teach and coach and guide this child. Now, can he be a feminine boy? Sure. I know plenty of boys who they're not transgender. They're feminine. I know feminine men that aren't gay, that aren't transgender. They're feminine. That doesn't make them a woman necessarily. But I do think it's really important that we teach our children these parameters in which to operate. And some people will say, well, then, he's going to struggle. Look, he or she is going to struggle anyways. This is a situation where if you decide to treat your son like a girl, he's going to struggle. It's not going to make his life easier.
Yeah.
If you treat him like a boy because he is a boy and he wants to be a girl, he's going to struggle. This is a situation in which, regardless of what you do, this child is going to struggle. So it's your job to teach them love, kindness, compassion, grit, determination, fortitude, all the virtues that we've been talking about here. And then talking about gender and boys and girls and why it's important and how special it is to be a boy if you're a boy, or how special it is to be a girl if you're a girl. And I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't have a great answer.
And I think that's where the labels come in that are like, that I hate. I hate this. And this is.
But what labels are you talking about?
Well, like, I'll give you an example. Like, you used the perfect example already, is you said, well, I know feminine guys. Well, guess what society does the minute they see a guy that's slightly feminine? Oh, he's gay.
Sure.
He's transgender. Well, maybe he's not, actually. Maybe he's just feminine a little bit. That's it. And maybe he's not actually gay, but because the society in which he lives in, everyone throws this label on him, and then he looks at himself and goes, oh, geez, well, maybe I am because everyone thinks I am, and I get labeled this way. When in reality, it's like, no, maybe I'm just kind of a feminine guy, and the ideal girl for me is someone that's a little bit more masculine and domineering, and that works out well for me.
Sure.
Right? But we throw labels, and then these guys feel like they have to fall into these labels sometimes. Now, I'm not saying that's the case with this kid, but I don't know. It's something that
the other side, though, too, though, Kipp, is like some of these labels, they're not even labels. They're just the way we define it, like a boy. All right. A boy has a Y chromosome and has a penis. So that makes him a boy. Is that a label? No, that's the word. Those are the noises that we make with our mouths to describe that phenomenon.
Yeah.
That's not really a label. It's just like, that's how we describe it so that we can't look. I think we as humans are constantly trying to make sense of everything around us. And the way that we make sense is by communicating those words, by using our words so that we can understand and make sense of what is actually happening in our lives.
Just some of them can be damaging, right? And some of them.
And I would say this is then it's on us as parents to teach our children to teach them to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I think we do ourselves and our children a disservice when we don't help them build up some emotional resiliency. Like the other day, when we were at the bounce house, a bunch of kids were swearing. And my son's like, Dad, those kids were swearing. I'm like, well, you've heard swear words before, right? Now, should they be swearing in there? No, and of course. And I told him, hey guys, watch the language. You got little kids around here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're going to run across swearing. So get used to it. That doesn't mean that we need to make those same choices or we need to use those words, but they're going to be exposed to it. So this is how you deal with it. And I think that we need to do that as parents is like, hey, look, people, there's going to be bullies. There's going to be people that don't like you. There's going to be people who disagree with you. And that's just part of life. We can't strip it away. And I know we try. We really try to legislate it away and strip it away and do these little anti-bullying things. Look, that stuff's not going away. But what you can do to assertively address this situation is help your children be comfortable enough where they know who they are and they can stand on their own 2 feet. And when people mock and ridicule, whether it's because they're transgender or because they're gay or because any number of variables that could possibly play out, that they aren't as impacted by that as somebody who's never been taught to express some emotional intelligence and resiliency.
Yeah. This is tough, man. Well, and I think, I think you did say this already, Ryan, but it just comes to mind is from Alex's perspective. I think, you do your best. You make sure your kid knows that they're loved regardless, right? That's super critical.
I think so.
Yeah, that's tough. Controversial too.
It is controversial because I know people are going to hear this and say, well, you should let that child be a girl. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you should.
Yeah. Well, it's like I used the analogy the other day is what was it? Damn it. I think it was my 15-year-old son said something like, oh, well, I know. And I'm like, no, you don't know. Right? Like, let's be frank. Would you go to school if we didn't force you to? No, I wouldn't. Well, exactly. You don't know what the hell you're doing, and you just get to listen, right? Like you get to listen. I get to tell you what, because you're a moron. And if it were up to you, you'd play Fortnite every day and do nothing else. Like that's the reality, right? So no, you're not in a position to make any decent decisions. That's why you're a minor and we're your parents.
That's exactly right. That's why there's authority figures. That's why there's parents, and that's why the family unit is so critical.
Yeah.
And I think there's this ultimate attack. I mean, I talk about this dismissal of masculinity, but I believe that there is this ultimate attack on gender in general. I also believe there's an attack on the family unit. And I think both of those pose a very, very serious threat to the fabric of society. We can't let our kids do whatever they feel like doing because we already know it would be like the real life
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
totally.
We can't, that's not healthy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, well, it's healthy to allow them to express themselves fully. Look, when they're out of the house, they can do whatever it is they feel like they want to do. But it's my job to teach them action and consequence.
Yeah.
And why we operate in these parameters and how it helps us actually be more successful.
Yeah. Actually, it was, now remember, it was a conversation around religion. Around, I'm not sure if I believe in these things. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter.
Like when I was younger, my mom made us go to church every single Sunday. And I would say that like, I don't know. She's like, Well, you don't have to know. You're still going to church.
Exactly.
And that's what it was for me when I was younger.
Yeah, that's part of parenting.
Yeah.
All right, Michael Charman, we're going to go from serious to even more serious. How much wood can a woodchuck chuck?
I thought you were scrubbing these questions.
I just had to say, I mean, it's kind of funny.
It was funny the first 100 times I heard, like, because I did these Ask Me Anythings in our Facebook group. And that's the one people would always say that question. And the other question they would ask is, something about
it's like a military thing.
They would ask, what's the
bird,
a swallow or something? And it's on some movie that somebody's going to mock me because I don't know what
Mighty Python. Was it Mighty Python?
I don't know, whatever. And I'm supposed to say African or European. And there's like this whole little script. I'm like, okay, I've heard that, 200 times now. It's just not funny anymore.
All right. So the question is like, do I skip these next two questions? I probably should.
Well, for scrubbing them.
Yeah. Nah. Okay. Well, but it's kind of funny. Stan Michaels.
I leave it to you.
So I'm failing now. So Stan Michael, his comment is, why do your AMA podcast never apply to my special circumstances? Which I think is kind of
you're
fun.
Special. That's why. Because Stan's special. All
right. And someone else wants to ask why I'm not wearing a curvy brim. Hey, keep watching the YouTube. Maybe we will. Just keep watching the videos.
No, we won't.
All right. Noel Rodriguez, what's the difference between raising a boy as opposed to a girl? I had a recent argument with my sister because she feels that my 5-year-old niece shouldn't be doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I introduced her to BJJ, and I see her growth every week that passes by.
This is one question I saw, and I like this question a lot because it's tough. It's really tough. Then I've had a lot of people ask me that. Here's what I thought. This may not be the definitive answer, but it's a good one, I think, is that I think that every child has the right to be raised in a family unit with both a mother and father present. I believe that's critical because I can teach my children very much the same thing between my boys and my daughter. I can teach them very much the same thing, how to be tough and gritty and resilient and fortitude and why strength and determination and all of these things are very, very important. But what I've noticed is that even though I can teach my children the same thing, my daughter is naturally, and this is generally speaking, going to be more empathetic, more loving, more kind, compassionate, and my boys are naturally, again, generally speaking, going to be more assertive, more aggressive, more dominant, more physical, more gritty, even though I teach them the same things. So I think it's the responsibility of the same-sex parent to help them foster their own femininity and masculinity. So I can teach them the same things. I something different from me as they are from my wife. And my daughter is going to pick up something different from my wife than they are from me, even though we might be teaching the same thing. That's why it's so important that we have a mother and a father in the home, is because my wife is going to help my daughter bring out her feminine characteristics more fully than I'd ever be able to. And I'm going to help my kids bring out my son's more masculine characteristics more than my wife would ever be able to. Now, both of them can exhibit, both women and men, masculinity and femininity, right? We have that within both of us. And yet that same-sex parent is going to help that thing be more developed in boys and in girls. So I teach my daughters the same thing. My daughter hasn't expressed interest in jiu-jitsu, but physical fitness is important. So she's in basketball and soccer and dance and the things that she's doing. We go on campouts together. I do all the same things. When she scrapes her knee, I tell her to get up, wipe it off, get back to it, just like I would tell my boys. But I think they just naturally develop. Yesterday when we were out to dinner for, again, my son's birthday, my daughter came over to my son and she was hugging up on my son. And she's like, I just want to give you birthday kisses. I just want to cuddle you. And he's like, get off of me. And it's just the way it is, man. Just they're going to be naturally more affectionate, and guys are going to be more naturally, assertive and aggressive and a little bit more dominant. And the same sex parent really brings that out in the child, I believe.
Yeah. So no, I'll give you some ammunition with your sister. You ask her if your daughter should be a victim and feel afraid and be unable to defend herself for the rest of her life or not. Do you want that of your daughter? If you don't, you throw in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's what you do. And a perfect example of this, I gave Asia, my wife, grief over this the other day. She went to work. She had a client that they canceled, and it's a session like at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
No one was there at the building. She was in her car, and she calls me. She says, I feel afraid. I hate being a girl, right? Ask a lot of women. They feel this way all the time. They feel that they are potentially at danger all the time. And the primary reason for it, and this is what I told my wife, is because they do not know how to defend themselves. Period. And then you can go, well, yeah, but guys are more physically stronger than women, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? It doesn't matter. Look, the most dominant positions in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a woman on her back in a position that she would more likely be in the event that she was getting raped.
That's the whole point of jiu-jitsu is to equalize the playing field between a smaller opponent and a larger one.
Exactly. And so you are giving your daughter amazing ammunition to build confidence and to protect herself in the event that she got attacked or, God forbid, someone attempted to rape her or anything else. So you know what? You want to empower your daughter, the women in our world, to like feel confident and to be able to defend themselves. Then you know what? Yeah, definitely throw them in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And again, you're right. I believe you're right. And she needs a woman in her life to help nurture and foster the feminine side of her.
Yeah.
That, like, if all she's getting is that side of things, you're doing her an injustice.
I love that.
Like, if she's only getting the tough, physical, rough, rowdy, dominant side of things, she's not going to fully develop into the woman that she's capable of becoming, and vice versa. Yeah. If a boy is only getting the feminine, soft, kind, compassion, I'm not saying it's not important. It is. But if that's all he's getting and he's not getting the rough, tough, dominant, aggressive side of developing his character, he's not fully and well-rounded as a man. They need both. They need both.
Yeah. To your point, the importance of the family unit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Super
100%.
critical. All right. Clint Easton. I am a leader over young men at church. What is the one thing I could strive to teach 11 to 13-year-old boys spiritually or life-related that they may not learn from their fathers?
Self-sufficiency. Handle your shit. Yeah. It's not my responsibility. Give you an example. So I'm a leader in our church as well. He may be LDS. I'm LDS. You're LDS, Kipp. So my calling is what it's referred to as in the church is working with the 14 to 16-year-old young men. They would call them teachers. So that's my responsibility in the church. And every summer we do what we call a high adventure. It's part of the scouting program. So we take these boys on a 17-mile hike, and it's an overnighter. So the first night we hiked down, and I want to say this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. So my details are a little fuzzy, but it was a hike down. I want to say 6 or 7 miles down to the canyon, and there's some really cool pools, and the boys went and jumped in the pools and everything. It's really cool. And then we found our camping spot, set up camp, and then we hiked out the remaining 10 miles the next day. And so it was getting dusk. We got some dinner, and the boys were like, "Hey, what time is bedtime?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "What do you mean, what time's bedtime?" I'm like, "Whenever you want." And they're like, "Well, most of our scout leaders make us have a bedtime." I'm like, "You're 14 years old. You don't need me to tell you what time to go to bed. I'll tell you this, though. We're leaving at 7 a.m., which means that you need to be up, packed, changed, and food in you because we're hiking out at 7 a.m. We got other things to do. So I don't care if you go to bed now or if you go to bed at 6:30. As long as you're ready at 7 a.m., it doesn't matter." I said, I said, here's our motto: do whatever you want and suffer the consequences. That was our motto of the event. And so I went to bed, and there's a river by where we're at. And I go to bed, and there's probably 7 boys, and I hear them midnight. I hear them at 1 o'clock at night. and they're playing in the river, and they found some frogs. They put a frog in my sleeping bag. They about got their butts kicked for that. So they're out playing, and I wake up the next morning about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and I start kicking them like, "Hey guys, get up." They're like, "We don't want to get up. I'm tired." So I asked them, I said, "Well, what time did you go to bed?" They said 3 o'clock. I said, "Do whatever you want. Suffer the consequences. Now you suffer the consequences." So they got up. We went and hiked. They were tired. They were exhausted. I had a couple parents mad at me, of course.
Yeah.
But, dude, you're 14 years old. It's time for you to learn that you can go to bed on your own. You don't need me or anybody else telling you when you go to bed. Now, the next hikes that we went on, guess what time they went to bed?
Yeah.
Right when they should have. Got plenty of sleep because they know I'm not going to tell you. You're big kids. You can figure some of this stuff out. And they're not going to get that because every parent's like, "You got to do this, and you got to do this, and I'll save you. And if you do something wrong, then I'll come rescue you. And if you get in trouble, then I'll save you." And it's like, dude, you have a great responsibility as a scout leader or a young men's leader to teach them to be reliant upon themselves and each other and not be so helicopter parentish, if you will. It's a great position to be in, and they're not going to get it from their parents.
Yeah.
The majority of them aren't anyways.
Yeah.
So do whatever you want, suffer the consequences, and then uphold the consequences. I could have, like in this scenario, I could have said, "All right, guys, we'll sleep in for another couple hours." No, I'm not gonna rob you of the opportunity of learning from your mistake. I'm gonna let you wallow in the misery of being completely exhausted, so you learn the lesson, and you don't do it next time.
Yeah. That's great.
Scouts, man. Young men and scouts. Dude. It's so awesome.
We did a high adventure years back. We attempted a 50 miler.
Ooh, yeah. All at once? Because I think you have a week to do it, but you did it all at once.
An entire week. And I'll have to tell you the story sometime. It was so funny. Like, it was hilarious. Just everything went wrong, and
of course.
It was awesome.
And that's the things that they'll remember too. They'll look back and say, remember that scout leader we had, and everything went wrong, and it started snowing, and then our clothes got wet, and they got lost in the river. Remember how awesome that was? That's
totally.
They'll remember.
Well, and that particular high adventure is still talked about in our neighborhood even today.
Of course it is.
Remember, it's the llama high adventure trip.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
That's awesome.
Okay, Kyle Hake. How to date in this day of age. I'm 20 and girls my age just want sex. I was not raised this way. Kyle, you are the only 20-year-old complaining about this. I'm just joking. I shouldn't poke fun.
That seems weird to me.
Well, I mean, if he's
if that's not what you want, you're hanging out in the wrong circles. Bottom line. Yeah. You know, if that's not what you're interested in, I commend you for that. I don't think a person should have sex before they're married, so I commend you for that decision. Yeah. If that's not what you're interested in, you got to get out of those circles. Maybe you're in the partying circle. Maybe you're hanging out at the bar. Maybe you're hanging out with, frankly, women who are acting slutty. I don't know, but if that's what you're finding yourself in, you put yourself in that environment. Put yourself in a new environment. Be around professionals. Be around women who maybe are a little bit older. Maybe they're not 20. Maybe they're 25 or 26. And maybe you're just a little bit more mature, which is great. But go to professional conferences, go to where people are serious, where people are, maybe more interested in taking care of themselves, like the gym, or they're engaged in a specific hobby. But I think you found yourself in a circle that you aren't interested in being around. And although you might be comfortable in that circle, it's not producing the results that you're after, which tells me that you've got to find a new circle.
Do you think that his assessment is accurate? Have women changed so much? I mean,
I don't. I'm my experience, but I've been out of the game for 16 years now. So
I'm an old guy, and I would suggest that any girl that quote unquote all she wants to do is have sex at age 20, I would argue that that's actually not what she wants. That she may act like that because she thinks that's all that you want. But I don't think
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
No?
Why? Like, I'm sure there's promiscuous women just like guys who want to sleep around.
Yeah. You're just making it sound like all 20-year-olds. That's all.
Yeah, of course it's not all. It's just all for your circle. We have this confirmation bias, right? We talk with 10 of our friends and we're like,
the world.
And the world is like this. Like, yeah, your 10 closest friends are like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you've just made it that way. It's certainly not all of them. You just found yourself in the wrong circle.
Yeah.
Create a new circle. Find a new circle.
Well, you got something going for you, Kyle. I mean, you're probably a good-looking guy.
Apparently.
Got game.
Got game. All right. How are we doing on time?
I should have asked you.
You said you wouldn't want me to track it anymore. I think we got about 10 minutes.
All right, 10 minutes.
According to my clock, which is
30 minutes fast. It's an hour off.
Yeah, jeez.
All right, John Gilliland. Hey, John. How's it going? What arrows and broadheads do you shoot?
I shoot gold tips are the arrows that I shoot. Broadheads, I mean, maybe you can give me some suggestions. I've been using the Rage Tripans, but I'm thinking about going to the Grim Reapers. They're expandables. I don't know. I've tried a lot of different ones, so maybe you guys can give me some pointers on that. I know when I say that, everybody's going to send a different thing. I'm going to have like 30 different ones I need to try. I just kind of think like, just put the arrow where it's supposed to go and it'll do the job. I'm not saying that's an easy task. I'm not great at that quite yet, but that's what I've been using.
John, I think you should go with wood and an arrowhead. Make an arrowhead.
That's what I would do.
Go native.
That's right. What else?
Anthony Lim, list men's survival skills in the modern age.
Well, in the modern age, I think knowing how to do some basic electrical. I know, like, knowing how to work on your vehicle is important. Change a tire is important. Self-defense is important. Situational awareness is important. Being prepared for situations that you may run across. Having some contingency plans in place should an emergency or natural disaster take place.
Know your slashes.
Know your slashes, your backslashes and your forward slashes. Absolutely. Know how to handle a firearm. Know how to use a knife. Know how to make a fire. I mean, all of it. You need to know everything. No, really, you need to know everything.
Don't stop. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's exactly right. Never stop learning ways to take care of yourself and get yourself out of a sticky situation. Physical fitness is certainly an element and a component of that. But yeah, just learn it all. Learn everything you possibly can.
Yeah. Cool. John Moffat. What to do when your dad never really set the example of being a man as described by Ryan, Andy, Ed, and etc. Not driven, out of shape, lazy, relationship with your mom isn't the best. Do I try to help him get better or just let it be?
Well, what are you going to do?
So I'm confused. So is he talking about himself or
I think he's talking about himself, and I think he's saying that he didn't have a great role model and a father, and he's wondering if he should help him. Look, at the end of the day, you can't help people who aren't willing to help themselves. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but you've got to determine, is this an individual in your father who's willing to help himself? If he is, then there's certainly some things that you can share.
Yeah. Try to help, but realize you can't change someone.
Right. Exactly.
So, being an amazing example for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, what do you do for yourself? Your father's not the only place to learn how to be a man.
Yeah.
People say that all the time. It's like, well, I never had a father growing up. Neither did I.
Excuse.
It is. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. I didn't have a father either. And there's millions of other people who didn't have fathers. And they learned what needed to be learned. How? By surrounding themselves with other men who knew how to be men.
Yeah.
Whether it's here or Order of Men Facebook group or the Iron Council or somebody in your community or a local brotherhood or a fraternity or a sports team or the military or whatever. Just learn from other men. You're learning from me and Kipp and Andy and Ed and all the guys you're talking about. That's how you do it. You surround yourself with people who have become and who are aspiring to be like a type of individual and man that you are aspiring to be like. So don't use the thing of like, oh, I didn't have a father, so what do I do? Figure it out. Find somebody else who can behave in a way that you want to behave and you want to show up and become that type of man.
Yeah. Buy him sovereignty, John.
Yeah, for sure. If he'll read it.
Really, I think that I love that way of introducing a thought process to a friend of saying, hey, you know what? I got you this book. when you're done reading it, let's talk. If they never read it,
then
yeah.
Right, you're out $20 or whatever.
Yeah, if they read the book and say, dude, that was awesome, then you're like, nice, we're on the same page. We can have some conversation about this stuff, and then you can deep dive into some more
Good
stuff.
idea. Yep, great idea. Cool, let's take a couple more, and then we'll call it a day.
All right, Bruce. I know your name's not Bruce, but
You're
Bruce is nice. Yeah,
maybe it is. How do you know? How do you know that?
That's true. I'm judging you, Bruce. I'm sorry.
You're not judging. You're just assuming.
As my dad would say. All right. Discuss how you expand your network while focusing on a high value connections. I actually like this question.
Oh, okay. So expand your network, high value connections.
Yeah, expand it while still trying to focus on high value connections.
Yeah, I think you just have to have a system in place, right? I've got systems in place for following up. In fact, you can't see it, but so there's my safe. Behind my safe is, you can kind of see a glass board right there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
I see right there. Yeah. So those on that board are relationships that I want to continue to manage and develop and foster. So I've got a whole list of them, and then I can go in that database and things that I have on my calendar set up, and I can constantly be reaching out to these individuals periodically and systematically in order to develop and foster deeper relationships with these people. The biggest thing that I've ever been able to do with high value connections is to serve them. So if I see an article that I think would be useful, or I see an article that maybe they're in, I'll just shoot them a quick message. Hey, I saw this article. Really appreciate what you had to say. Or one guy I think of right offhand is Jordan Harbinger with the Art of Charm. He was with the Art of Charm. Now it's Jordan Harbinger Show. Is every once in a while I'll reach out to him, or he'll reach out to me and say, hey man, I've got somebody on the podcast that I think would make a great fit for your podcast. Can I introduce you? Now I'm serving this person. Not only am I serving Jordan, but I'm also serving the guy that I'm making an introduction for as well. So now you're doing both, right? So constantly add value, have a systematic approach to building your network and connecting with these people that you want to connect with. And in the meantime, figure out where other people are, these high value connections. Are they at conferences? And if so, what conferences are they at? What are they doing for activities? Where are they hanging out on social media? And be very deliberate. It's not about casting a wide net. I don't really believe in that. It's about sniper-like practices, right? It's about tools that you're using to connect with powerful people in an industry or an environment that you're interested in doing. We actually talk about this in our Tribe Builder course, which is we're starting another one in February 1st. And this is me pulling back the curtain to what we've been able to do within Order of Man and grow this organization and movement, and how we've been able to do it in such a short period of time, and connect with guys like Ed Milet and Andy Frisilla and Grant Cardone and Jocko Willink and Tim Kennedy and Dakota Meyer and all the amazing, amazing men that we've been able to connect with. I'm pulling back the curtain and sharing all of that. So if you're trying to build something, that might be something you're interested in as well. That's February 1st. It's orderofman.com/tribebuilder.
Okay. So when you're saying like sniper style, instead of saying, trying to reach a huge, broad audience, you're narrowed in a handful of contacts that you're focused on expanding your network into. You're not thinking a much broader sense than that.
Because 5 of the right contacts can significantly outweigh 5,000 of the wrong ones.
Yeah.
So we don't want to cast a wide net. We want to cast a narrow, deep net. That's the better strategy, tactic to employ.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
I love it. And I love the intentionality around it, right? The fact that you know who they are, that you're acting on it, not just, I'd like to,
Right. No, I've got a list, even on my phone. In fact, I wrote down a couple of names of guys that I want to have on the podcast. These are people I want to connect with. I wrote them down because I want to be intentional about it. So I wrote those names down, and then I'll research and figure out ways to connect with these people and contact them.
Cool. All right. One more question.
Sure. Let's take one more.
All right. Colton Hunter Nolan. How to approach relationships with the opposite sex in a healthy way when all you have seen in your parents are divorce, fighting, and etc.
This goes back to the same question. Well, a couple of different questions. You're running in the wrong circles, number one. So you're looking at the wrong examples. And number two is that you are, what was the question before? I didn't have an example. Find an example.
Yeah.
Find an example.
Hang out with people that are amazing couples that you want to model.
It's not complicated. It really isn't. When I was struggling with my wife in our relationship and we went through our separation, I started hanging out with guys who were locked down in the fatherhood and husband department. And surprise, surprise, I learned what they were doing, and I was able to implement that stuff and become a better father and husband myself. Yeah. So proximity is powerful.
Yeah.
If you're around people who are losers, you're going to be a loser. If you're around people who are strong, capable, self-sufficient human beings, then you're probably going to be a strong, capable, self-sufficient human being.
Yeah. And I think that example in the relationship area, it could be friends, it could be grandparents,
anything.
It could be couples in your neighborhood. I mean, you can find a lot of good examples of
there's podcasts, specifically on relationships. I mean, there's stuff out there for sure.
Cool.
All right, let's wrap it up. Let's call it a day.
Yeah. So we talked about this earlier in regards to Ryan's amazing video of taking out kids with dodgeballs. You can watch that video and many other good videos and posts on Instagram at Ryan McClure. If you want to contribute to this podcast and submit some questions, we are going to scrub them. So don't get offended.
No more woodchuck questions.
Actually, I'm tempted to say don't get offended, but what Ryan would say is be offended. If your question gets scrubbed, that means it wasn't a good question. Yeah. So improve and give us better questions. But you can submit those questions really one of three ways via patreon.com/Order of Man, which is a Patreon account for the most part is a way to contribute to the movement, to the order.
Yeah. There's little perks in there and things as well. So
while getting some perks and some benefit and some swag and whatnot. Mm-hmm. The second approach is to join us in our brotherhood, the Iron Council. This is 500 plus like-minded men being on the court in life and holding each other accountable and having structure and focus and accountability and team efforts and discussions and a whole lot more on a regular basis. You can learn more about the Iron Council at orderofman.com/Iron Council. And then the last is to join us on the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Order of Man. And we have 50K plus men part of that group. And there's a lot of good conversations. And there's a lot of conversations and questions that need your opinion and insights, right? I was just scrubbing through the Facebook group yesterday, and I thought, if I was in a position to type because I was on my phone, I did not want to
type a novel.
Yeah, type a novel. I was like, man, but I need a reply to this guy, right? Because someone posted something. I was like, oh man, you're seeing this wrong,
right?
So contribute, man, make a difference, and stand and be a lighthouse for other men. And one good way to do that is in that Facebook group. So.
Right on, man. Cool. All right, guys. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. Glad you're here and tuned in. We're all becoming better men together. I think this is powerful because we are banded together and we're learning from each other. So let's wrap this up, guys. Go out there, have a great week, and then we'll catch you next week on next week's Ask Me Anything. But until then, take action and become the man you are meant to be.